The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
General Assembly and the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast. And a very warm welcome to one of our favorite guests from Prince William County, Delegate Luke Torian. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you.
I know you've been busy. About a week ago, the 2013 short 45-day session started, but you've been very busy on a lot of issues, including voting rights. Talk to us a little bit about that area of the law and some of the observations that you made election night last year.
I tell you, this whole issue on voting rights has garnered a great deal of attention, and election night for me was rather interesting. For the first time, had to stand in line for a considerable amount of time to vote. 4 years ago, voting was relatively easy for me. This time around, my wife and I stood in line for an hour and 10 minutes.
Wow.
To vote. And then after voting myself, I went around to several other precincts just to see how things were going, and discovered that the hour and 10 minutes that I had to wait did not compare to some of the other localities. I went to one precinct, and just trying to get to the parking area, I was just astounded by the number of cars in the parking area.
Really?
The lot was just overflowing with vehicles. And once I was able to park going into the precinct, the line on the outside was very long. And then to my amazement, upon getting into the precinct, wraparound lines inside of the school facility. It was just so astounding to see the number of people who came out to vote and stood in line. Some of them averaged 3.5 to 4 up to 5 hours.
That long?
That long.
Wow.
I was at a local precinct when the polls closed at 7. I stayed until 8 o'clock that evening, and upon leaving, left several hundred voters in the facility waiting to vote. It was just absolutely amazing.
Wow. So, for some reason, we make it harder, not easier, in this country for people to exercise their right to vote. And I know that's something that you want to change and make access to the voting booth a whole lot easier. And I know you testified before Congress yesterday. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I was privileged to go before Congressman Jerry Connolly and Congressman Elijah Cummings held a forum addressing some of the challenges that we faced in the last election, and was able to share with them my experience. And I think as a result of the federal government and obviously the General Assembly taking a close look at the voting process, we hope to improve on how we go about voting.
Did you have an opportunity that night when you made those observations that shocked you to talk to any of the people who were standing in line? And
oh, I certainly did.
Okay. What kinds of remarks and comments did you receive?
Well, just going around and encouraging them to stay enthusiastic about the election, because Prince William County was a pivotal county in the election, and just simply share with them that your vote really matters. So we were able to bring water in, bring in coffee and some snacks just to encourage them, and they all were determined that they were going to vote.
Now, were all of those people able to vote by the 8 p.m. deadline, or how does that work? If I'm in line at 8 p.m. and I haven't had the opportunity to vote, what happens?
Actually, the polls close at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And if you are in line at 7 p.m., you will exercise your right to vote. And so that's what occurred.
So that means that those people working the polls as officials are required by law to stay around until everyone has their opportunity to exercise their right to vote. Now, I know that as a result of this experience, you are working on some legislation to make it easier for people to vote and have access to the voting booth. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of those measures?
Yeah. I have a couple of pieces of legislation, and one would be to extend the polling hours.
The polling hours.
Going from 7 to 8 p.m. North Carolina and the state of Maryland both have their polling hours extended until 8 p.m. and recognizing that where I live, metropolitan Washington, it's difficult for some of our voters who live in Prince William County to get back down into the area by 7 o'clock p.m., particularly if it's a bad weather day. And so I think that if we're able to extend those hours, it would be extremely helpful. Also, what we did not have accessible to us in Prince William County during the course of the last election, we did not have paper balloting available to us, and so I have a piece of legislation in that address making paper balloting available during the election process as well.
Now, why is that not available? Is there just nothing that authorizes the availability of paper ballots?
At the time, it was not authorized in Prince William County.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other initiatives that relate to voting?
Yes, I have legislation in that will reduce the number of voters required per voting machine.
Okay.
For example, per voting machine, you must have at least 750 voters per machine. We want to reduce that number down to at least 500.
Okay. Okay. So that will increase the number of voting machines available, which will cut down on the number of lines,
absolutely,
et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now, the committee of jurisdiction for these matters in the House is what, privileges and elections?
Yes.
Is that the one? So that's, or have all of your bills been referred to that committee?
My bills have been referred, and ironically, as we speak today, 3 of my bills are up before subcommittee, so I'll be going before subcommittee later on this afternoon.
So you will be there. You will have to present these bills, present the substance and rationale behind the policy, and defend it through any questions that you receive.
Yes, that's correct.
And what's the process after that?
The process, my bills are before subcommittee. I'll go before the subcommittee and present my bills. If there are individuals there who are in favor of my bills, they will speak on behalf of the bills. If there are those who oppose, then they will speak in opposition, and then the subcommittee will vote. If I get a favorable vote from the subcommittee, then the bills will go before the full committee, be heard before the full committee, and with a majority vote, then it goes to the House floor.
So what kind of reception have you received from your colleagues about your initiatives? Have you had an opportunity to discuss these issues with them?
Oh, yes. Positive. Everything's been positive, encouraging, and I've had some of my colleagues to sign on as patrons to the bills.
Great, great, great. Well, we wish you great success with that. There are obviously a lot of other issues of importance to you and your constituents, but sticking to the issue of voting, one of the applause lines, in fact, the biggest applause line that the governor received last week in his State of the Commonwealth relating to his wish that the process for restoring civil rights, voting rights to nonviolent felons be made automatic. That measure died a very quick demise this week in the House of Delegates, and obviously there are arguments pro and con on that. Were you surprised that it came to such an early demise?
After the State of the Commonwealth address by the governor and his comments in the restoration of rights, particularly voting rights, I was surprised that it died a quick death. I would have hoped that it would have had some life and would have given us an opportunity to have some dialogue on the House floor relative to the governor's request.
Yet it was interesting because I believe he had and he still has the support of the Attorney General as well as the Lieutenant Governor. I take it that there is some hope that it can be maintained at least on life support over on the Senate side, because there is a companion measure over there. And as I understand it, the process now allows the executive to make these decisions on a case-by-case basis.
The governor makes the decision on a case-by-case basis, and he has exercised that right and privilege. And I have been very fortunate to take an individual case before the governor and have an individual in our congregation to have his voting rights restored. So I do know that he's active in looking at these individual cases.
Great, and that's a requirement under the state constitution. So whatever would happen in terms of the General Assembly approving something like that, it would have to go to the voters of the Commonwealth to be approved of.
That is correct.
Okay. Do you have a lot of federal employees in your district? Or
I do.
yes, and of course another looming potential crisis that unfortunately you don't have much control over relates to this issue of sequestration. It could have an adverse impact on federal employees and also on people who are in the military around the state of Virginia. Are you hearing much from your constituents, even though there's nothing you can do about it because you aren't an elected member of Congress, at least?
I'm hearing quite a bit about it, and it is the planning that has to go on in preparation if this sequestration goes through. A lot of the federal employees that work with the various agencies have shared with me the planning and the what-ifs if this happened, and the potential loss of jobs, layoffs, looms large. Absolutely. In our community.
And it will also have an impact on discussions and the fashioning of a budget here in Richmond, no doubt.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I believe that the governor suggested an increase in a contingency fund that has been set up to deal with these kinds of emergencies. Whether that contingency fund would be enough to mitigate the adverse impacts that would occur is still a question that remains, however.
And we still have to operate with a balanced budget.
Yes, there's a constitutional requirement, unlike the federal government.
Unlike the federal government, which puts a strain on the various agencies throughout the Commonwealth.
Right. Now, the governor also suggested that the teachers, certain teachers, get pay raises. They haven't had raises in quite a while. Are you hearing much about that from your constituency?
They are applauding the governor's recommendation that teachers would receive a pay raise, and I applaud the governor for allowing that to take place as well. Our educators need to be encouraged, and one way to do that is to increase their pay, increase their salary. They haven't had a raise in a while. And
there are some of our unsung heroes. As a matter of fact, some of them use their own funds to buy equipment and supplies for the students
and that's been ongoing for years. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in terms of K through 12, I know you have a good relationship with the schools in your district, and do you hear much about the importance of preschool? And what impact that has on ensuring that children, when they reach the third grade level, actually have the ability to read and to advance?
Any level of preparation for our sons and daughters, preschool, very vital. Any level of preparation that helps to equip them is a benefit.
And what about our junior colleges? They play a pretty critical role. Not only in educating those who can't afford to go to our institutions of higher learning, but those who have lost their jobs over the past few years, educating them so that they can become productive members of society once more.
Woody, with the increasing costs of higher education, junior colleges, community colleges, a lot of our community colleges that specialize in specific trades, we have seen an increase in attendance at our junior colleges and at our community colleges as well, because the individuals who are not able to go to four-year institutions, they can go to these community colleges, pick up a specific trade, and make themselves viable for employment.
And of course, the emphasis on science, technology, engineering, math, and now healthcare is very important as well.
The STEM program is critically important, and it's getting a lot of mileage, actually.
And you have one of the renowned institutions of higher learning in Prince William County, I believe George Mason University. George Mason
University is well represented in Prince William County, a very progressive institution, and we're delighted to have George Mason as a part of Prince William County and our community and the higher education process.
Now, what about tuition costs? They seem to have, unfortunately, increased markedly over the years in our institutions of higher learning. What is the state attempting to do to alleviate that burden, especially for our in-state students?
I think what we're seeking to do is to increase the percentage of in-state students that can be accepted at our institutions of higher learning, and that would help mitigate some of the costs as well.
And of course, there is a process and a way to help finance one's education. If you do well at the junior college level, you're automatically admitted to some of our institutions of higher learning, as I understand it.
There are agreements with Virginia Tech, University of Virginia, George Mason, where students who do well at our community colleges with specific majors, I understand it, they can then automatically, upon the completion of their community college program, be eligible for enrollment at these other institutions.
And I believe there's the TAG program, the Tuition Assistance Grant Program, that goes hand in hand with that to help students with their finances.
Absolutely.
As well. Now, what's going on in your business community? I know that's one of your interests, to create jobs, especially with small businesses. How do we encourage that through state government?
Well, I have a bill before the General Assembly where a new business that's coming in the community would revitalize, rehabilitate a existing facility that has not been in use for a number of years. If they go in and refurbish, refit that facility, start a business, then there's a tax incentive for the money that they invest in that facility.
Great. Now, where is that bill? Is it in Commerce and Labor?
It's Commerce and Labor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It hasn't been heard yet.
Has not been heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That bill will be heard next week, actually.
Okay. Great. Great. Transportation. Another critical core function of government, and I know that there are transportation needs in your district, as there are throughout the state of Virginia. And of course, if the governor has his way, the 17.5-cent gas tax will be eliminated. The only state in the union to ever do that. I know you've had an opportunity to at least listen to his remarks and react to some of his suggestions. What's your thinking right now in terms of the needs of transportation and his proposal?
Well, I am encouraged that I believe we're going to have a serious dialogue this session relative to transportation. We need to do something soon in regards to a long-term solution for our transportation problems. I will take a look at his proposal. I'm not quite sure if the elimination of the gas tax is the answer, and I'm not quite sure that increase in sale tax would be the answer, but we're going to have a real good dialogue in regards to it, and hopefully what will happen during the course of this session, we will come out of the General Assembly with a meaningful direction on how we're going to sustain funding long-term for our transportation issue, because it's a real challenge.
Yeah, and of course it's certainly a long time coming. Is there any construction in Prince William County dealing with some of the hot lanes, for example, that have been going on?
Yes, we do have construction that's underway. There's an 8-mile stretch from Dumfries down to the Occoquan area, 95 corridor, and that's underway. And I tell you, it's impressive what they've done so far.
Now, one of the phenomena that has grown up over the years in terms of the I-95 corridor is this concept of slugs. And I'm sure you've observed it, at least, and those are people who are picked up by others to ride into D.C., and that happens almost every day. Is there going to be any adverse impact through the use of these hot lanes, or is that something that anyone is even looking into, as far as you know?
It was looked into when the whole concept of hot lanes, and from the understanding that I have, the slugging process will continue and will not be impacted.
Because that's one of these non-governmental, cultural kinds of phenomena that has proved to be very successful in terms of getting people to ride in cars together. Extremely
successful, and when I have to travel into Washington early in the morning, I participate in the process myself.
Sometimes you take advantage of it yourself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Now, some of the piece parts of the governor's proposal have drawn criticism from various sides. First, the elimination of the 17.5 cents tax, although apparently he's going to keep that on diesel fuel, because trucks cause a lot of the problems in terms of maintenance. I think there's also a $15 increase in the registration fee, and there's a $100 a year fee if one uses an alternative fuel vehicle. Have you had an opportunity to analyze any of those in any detail?
I've only had the opportunity to review them briefly. Part of the concern with eliminating the gas tax, when you have out-of-state travelers coming, and 95 is a major corridor, so, and it's used a lot by out-of-state travelers. So if you eliminate the gas tax, then what is the benefit that we receive in the Commonwealth from out-of-state travelers? Also, there's a potential there for double taxing those individuals who use diesel fuel. So all of that would be looked at.
Yeah, and I guess another concern that has been expressed relates to funding from the federal government contingent upon the repeal of a law that prohibits all states from taxing internet sales, for example. And we know, as you know, that the federal government doesn't act very quickly, and I think that bill has been in the hopper for a number of years, to say the least.
It's probably not very wise to make decisions based upon what the federal government is going to do, because they do not act quickly.
Now, one of the other issues that has drawn a lot of interest relates to the current moratorium on the mining of uranium in the Commonwealth. And there's one county, Pennsylvania, I believe, where there's a fairly large find of that rare metal that can be used to fuel nuclear plants, for example. And there are pros and cons on that. Where do you think that's going to wind up?
Right now, as I understand it, it's going to go before the Senate first.
Okay.
So the Senate will have this shot at whether or not they want to pass legislation to lift the ban on mining. If the Senate passes legislation, then we'll address it in the House. If the legislation does not pass out of the Senate, we will not deal with it in the House. And it is a very volatile issue.
Yeah, I guess there's the promise of the creation of jobs. There's the promise, for example, of taxing the milling of the mines that will produce those rare elements. But on the other hand, there are a host of safety issues as well, and I believe there's a commission that has looked at a lot of those safety issues.
Yes.
Medicaid expansion as a result of the Affordable Care Act. That's another matter that's before the state. We have a lot of our citizens who can't afford health care. The Affordable Care Act was upheld. Where do you think that's going to wind up? The state is suggesting, or at least some state officials are suggesting, that even with the amount of money that the federal government is going to contribute to that effort, in the long run, the state may not be able to afford the expansion.
I think the Commonwealth should look very closely at its relationship with the federal government in regards to this issue. They have not, and I say they, the administration perhaps, has not looked very favorable upon the Affordable Care Act and what it can do for all of the citizens of the United States. I would hope that the administration will look very closely at receiving those funds and allowing them to become a part of the solution for the problem that we have with health care here in the Commonwealth.
And I take it that you probably have a significant number of constituents who can't afford health care, who would be eligible under any expansion that would occur.
Absolutely, yes.
And some people argue that we're going to pay for it one way or the other. The people who can't afford it go to emergency rooms, for example. That's not very efficient. It's very costly, and so your premiums and mine are increased anyway. So either pay me now or pay me later, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So tell me this. I know that you're very busy every day. I don't think people understand how busy the membership is. Can you give us an idea of what a life in the day, a typical day of a Delegate Luke Torian is?
A typical day, and I'll just give you my day on Thursday. Tomorrow, I'll be in subcommittee meeting at 7 a.m. And depending on the number of bills that we have to address, I may be there for an hour, hour and a half. And then after coming out of subcommittee meeting, I'll go back to my office and entertain meetings that I have with various organizations who travel to the Capitol to meet with us. And then we go into a caucus meeting, typically at 11 o'clock. Then we're on the House floor at noon. And depending on the number of bills that we will have before us, we may be in for an hour or two. And then back to my office for additional meetings. And then I have another subcommittee meeting at 5 p.m. And that may last an hour or so, and then out to dinner with constituents or other individuals, organizations that are here to meet with us. So I'll get back to my hotel on a good day around 9:30 in the evening.
So how often do you have time to actually meet with constituents who come to Richmond?
I typically meet with constituents Monday through Thursday. Most of our constituents will travel to the Capitol between Monday and Thursday.
And how many committees are you assigned to now, and which committees are they?
I'm assigned to 3 committees: County, Cities, and Towns, General Laws, Agriculture, Chesapeake, and Natural Resources.
Okay, and how do those committees and the subject matter that they cover allow you to effectively represent your constituents? What subject matters come before those committees?
A lot of, well, obviously when you talk about agriculture and Chesapeake, you're dealing with Chesapeake Bay issues, and anything that's dealing with farming comes to the agricultural, natural resources, those kinds of things. They come before our committee. General laws issues that we have to deal with relative to localities and government, or county, cities, and towns. Obviously, we have to deal with issues pertaining to how they're going to function and operate as well.
Great. You know, a couple of issues that are holdovers from last session relate to kids who are homeschooled and their ability to participate in athletics. The Tim Tebow bill, is that before us again?
That's before us again.
Okay, and where's that likely to go, you think?
It's likely to pass the House, but it'll have a challenge in the Senate.
Okay, and then there's the perennial initiative regarding what's commonly known as the King's Dominion Law. That one, I take it, prohibits the opening of local school districts without a waiver before Labor Day.
Yes.
Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yeah, so that one's back before the General Assembly as well?
It is, and there's a lot of merit for allowing schools to open early. Certainly my school division would like to have that option in Prince William County, the option of starting school before Labor Day.
And I guess the opposition to it is that it's going to have an adverse, significant economic impact on the business operations.
That's the argument. I'm not sure that it holds a lot of water, a lot of weight there.
Well, good. Well, we wish you luck in all your endeavors this session. We appreciate you being here. Your leadership on these voting issues is critical, and hopefully you will be successful. Thank you, Delegate Luke Torian.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.